So GIS, Geographic Information Science or Geographic Information Systems, is essentially a set of tools, methodologies, software for analyzing and presenting data about people, phenomena, places on Earth, and particularly presenting and analyzing that data using computer technology. Um, and when I think about like how can GIS be used and how it's useful, I sort of categorize it into three different buckets. So the first is visualization. So maps are a form of data visualization, just like charts or graphs. I'm of the belief that maps are a more accessible form of data visualization. I think that people, when they see their data and their communities presented as a map, they can relate to it and connect to it and draw interpretations from it in a way that they might not be able to from like a pie chart, for example. So I think that ability to present data on a map and be able to see how that data is distributed spatially is really powerful. Another really great way to think about visualizing data using GIS is the ability to overlay multiple data sets. So to take a really simple example, if I have a map that shows population density, I can overlay that with the location of schools. And having those two data sets visually on top of each other, we can start to look at potential relationships between those data and be able to then ask questions, and in a way that we really couldn't have done without GIS. You can't really overlay those two types of data without a map as the sort of conduit for bringing them together. So I think that sort of capability is really, really meaningful and really, really unique in GIS. The other sort of category is manipulating and analyzing data. So a GIS software can understand the relationship between data sets. So to give you an example, if I am wanting to ask a question about, how are housing markets impacted in communities around national parks, and I have a data set that is the location of national parks, and I have a data set of counties and their average home prices, a GIS software can understand the proximity between those two data sets and be able to select, here are all of the counties that are within 10 miles of this national park. And then I can pull that data set out to be able to then ask questions and do analysis of it. If I was trying to do that outside of a GIS software, it would be really, really tedious or just impossible, frankly. So that ability to sort of manipulate data because the GIS software understands the spatial relationship between data is pretty meaningful. And then the last bucket is on interpretation. So when we look at a phenomena from a spatial perspective, we can have a different understanding of that data. We can lead us to have a new understanding of it, to see how data is distributed across a space and sort of what those interactions are. And then particularly in a professional setting, it can lead you to make different decisions. It can give you some more nuance to the decisions that you have to make when you understand, like if I'm looking at asthma-related deaths across the United States, to understand that, maybe Black communities are more disproportionately affected in the Northeast United States versus Latinx communities are more affected in the Southwest. And how does that impact my decision-making about how to intervene with that issue? I think that the interpretation use is also where GIS is really powerful in like the humanities. When you think about like our world today, boundaries and borders are sort of the cultural norm and pretty well delineated, but that hasn't always been the case. If you map, interactions, where people traveled, how they got around in different time periods, you can start to see that, or if you want to look at what people consider like culturally significant places in their community, you can start to see how borders become really fuzzy, and that you can start to have a different understanding of how people, ideas, goods traveled and interacted with each other because of a different understanding of space than we have today. So I think that that is a really meaningful thing to be able to do, both in the humanities and contemporarily. So that is how I would define GIS, and sort of some of the different applications of it.